Right now, there is probably an 80,000-pound vehicle parked on a dark highway off-ramp somewhere near your house.
Yeah, almost certainly.
And, I mean, you've probably driven past it on your way home, caught the reflection of its taillights, and just thought absolutely nothing of it.
Right, it just blends into the background of a commute.
Exactly. But that single idling truck is actually this highly visible symptom of a $100 billion supply chain failure.
Which is just a staggering number to wrap your head around.
It really is. And today's deep dive is grounded in this comprehensive industry overview, looking at the 2026 state of rest areas and lodging in the trucking sector.
Yeah, it's a fascinating source text.
So we are looking past the blur of big rigs on the interstate. Our mission today is to decode why something as seemingly basic as, finding a place to park has become one of the most severe structurally embedded bottlenecks of our time.
It is a phenomenal logistical paradox, honestly. I mean, we tend to conceptualize modern supply chains entirely in terms of velocity.
Right, speed is everything.
Exactly. We picture cargo ships crossing the Pacific, automated rail networks, and trucks just maintaining a constant 65 miles per hour.
Just nonstop motion.
Yeah, but any physical network is really only as resilient as its ability to manage friction, and crucially, to safely handle the required pauses.
Required pauses, yeah.
And right now, the architecture designed to manage those pauses in the North American trucking sector is in a state of catastrophic failure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly grasp the scale of that failure, we really have to look at the sheer brutal math at the foundation of this crisis.
Oh, the math is rough.
It is. It's a massive, unyielding imbalance between supply and demand. So, nationwide, there are roughly 3.5 million truck drivers actively operating on the road on any given day.
3.5 million.
Right. But the total inventory of designated legal truck parking spaces in the whole United States sits at about 313,000.
Which doesn't quite match up.
Not even close.
Yeah.
That gives us a functional ratio of exactly one parking space for every 11 trucks.
One for every 11.
Yeah. And if you isolate just the public infrastructure, I mean, the state-run rest areas that are supposed to serve as the baseline safety net, the numbers completely collapse.
They absolutely fall off a cliff.
There are fewer than 40,000 public spaces available. That is one public spot for every 87 drivers. It's basically a high-stakes game of musical chairs.
That's a great way to put it.
But, played with 80,000-pound vehicles, where losing the game means literally breaking the law.
Right, which is an utterly unsustainable operating environment. If we think of the national supply chain as, like, a cardiovascular system, the highways are the arteries, and these parking facilities act as vital pressure release valves.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Well, when you shrink the capacity of those valves to handle only a fraction of the flow, the pressure just backs up through the entire network.
There's nowhere else to go.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the immediate operational consequence of that, which is a massive daily loss of forward momentum. Drivers are routinely losing between 30 and 60 minutes of their working day simply burning fuel and hunting for a legal piece of asphalt.
And I really want to pause on that 30 to 60 minutes. Because, I mean, from the perspective of an everyday commuter, an extra half hour of driving just sounds like hitting heavy traffic.
Right, it's just a slight delay to us.
Yeah, it's an annoyance. But for a commercial driver, it fundamentally breaks their daily operational model, doesn't it?
Completely. And that's because of the rigid mechanical enforcement of that time loss. We have to remember that commercial drivers are physically tied to electronic logging devices, or ELDs.
The digital trackers.
Yeah. Exactly. These systems digitally track every single second the engine is running, and they strictly govern how many hours a driver can legally operate before they are federally mandated to shut down.
So it's very strict.
Very. The ELD doesn't care if there's a parking shortage. When the clock runs out, you are legally required to be off the road, period.
It is basically a hardwired countdown clock.
Exactly. So if a driver anticipates that it is going to take them, say, an hour of driving around industrial parks and full rest stops just to locate an open space, they have to defensively end their shift an hour early.
Wow.
Yeah. They are forced to actively forfeit 10% of their legal earning potential and 10% of the freight's daily velocity just to ensure they aren't caught moving when their electronic log hits zero.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
The psychological burden of watching that clock tick down while passing full lot after full lot is immense.
And what happens when that clock hits zero and they haven't found a legal spot? Because, I mean, the math dictates that millions of them won't find one.
Right. They literally can't.
And this leads right into the local regulatory landscape, which honestly seems purposely designed to trap them.
Oh, it really does.
Because, from the source material, only about 30 states currently allow overnight parking at public rest areas to begin with.
It is a complete patchwork of rules. Even within those 30 states, municipal zoning boards and local highway authorities impose these wildly inconsistent restrictions.
So it changes from town to town.
Constantly. You can cross a county line and move from a jurisdiction that allows 24-hour parking, which, is actually sufficient to complete a federally mandated reset, into a jurisdiction that explicitly limits rest area parking to just 2 hours.
And hold on, let me get this straight.
Yeah.
2 hours.
2 hours.
That doesn't even cover a normal biological sleep cycle.
Not even close.
We're essentially mandating that they pull over for safety, but then legally forbidding them from actually getting enough sleep to be safe.
That's exactly what's happening.
We are structurally making it impossible for them to park legally. And then what? We penalize them for it. If I'm a driver, I'm penalized for parking illegally, but the numbers show I'm structurally prevented from parking legally. How can you possibly plan a route under those conditions?
You really can't. It turns national trip planning into a complete logistical minefield. And it's a staggering catch-22, driven really heavily by local NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Everyone wants the goods, but nobody wants the trucks.
Exactly. Municipalities absolutely rely on the rapid delivery of consumer goods, groceries, construction materials, but nobody wants to zone land for a massive, high-turnover industrial parking lot.
So they just ban the trucks from stopping.
Pretty much. Towns pass aggressive anti-idling and parking ordinances. If a driver overstays that 2-hour limit, or if they park in an unauthorized commercial zone because the legal lots are at capacity, they are hit with fines.
How much are we talking?
They easily range from $50 to $500, and in severe cases, the municipality will literally dispatch a heavy wrecker and tow the vehicle.
Which is insane to think about.
Right.
I mean, towing an 80,000-pound rig that might be carrying medical supplies or, hazardous materials.
Yeah.
All because the driver just tried to sleep.
Yeah, and that extreme punitive threat is exactly what forces drivers into the desperate measures we opened the discussion with.
Right, the dark off-ramps.
Exactly. They are pushed out of the safe zones and forced to park on the unlit shoulders of interstate highways or the deceleration lanes of exit ramps.
Which is incredibly dangerous. I mean, when you force a vehicle of that size to sit statically inches away from traffic, doing 70 miles an hour in the dark, the risk of a fatal collision just skyrockets.
It's a huge safety hazard for everyone on the road.
Not to mention the security threat. A driver sleeping in an isolated, unlit cab on a rural off-ramp is incredibly vulnerable to cargo theft.
Absolutely.
So the public infrastructure is just entirely absent here. It is completely stalled out due to lack of funding and those local zoning wars you mentioned.
Yeah, it's totally paralyzed.
So predictably, the free market has rushed in to fill the vacuum.
Completely. And the scale of that intervention is massive. Today, private truck stops and travel centers account for roughly 87% of the total commercial parking capacity in the country.
87%.
Because the public sector threw its hands up, a handful of massive private networks essentially swallowed the industry whole.
Just took over completely.
Yeah, and they aren't just paving lots. They are building massive logistics oases. We are talking about hundreds of acres featuring private security, specialized fueling lanes, hot food, laundry facilities, and high-bandwidth Wi-Fi.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The private sector didn't just build more spots. They entirely changed the business model of resting.
They really did.
Because demand so vastly outpaces supply, we are seeing the aggressive expansion of paid, reserved parking. Spots at these high-tier private facilities are routinely booking for $12 to $25 a night.
Up to $25 a night just to park.
Yes. We have quite literally commodified a biological imperative. The basic human necessity of closing your eyes for 8 hours so you don't, pilot a missile into a minivan is now a premium service you have to pay for.
It is wild. That commodification is a brilliant, albeit somewhat dystopian, market response to a systemic failure.
Very dystopian.
But we have to ask, why is a fleet manager or an independent owner-operator willing to absorb an extra $25 a night per truck?
Right, because I imagine margins are pretty tight.
In an industry where margins are famously razor thin, why voluntarily take on that new line item expense?
Well, it has to be the math of the ELD we talked about earlier, right? The countdown clock.
Precisely. It provides the one variable that the public infrastructure actively destroys, which is operational certainty.
Right, knowing you have a spot waiting.
Exactly. If a fleet dispatcher can pay $25 to guarantee a spot is waiting for their driver at 10 p.m., that driver no longer has to shut down an hour early to hunt for asphalt.
We can just keep driving.
They can run right up to the legal limit of their daily hours. And that extra hour of driving time translates to an extra 65 miles of forward progress.
Which obviously makes them more money.
Way more. It's worth vastly more in freight revenue than the $25 parking fee. It is essentially an insurance premium paid to mitigate the operational risk created by the government's lack of infrastructure.
Okay, I see the logic from a corporate finance perspective, but I am thinking about the actual mechanics of executing that strategy.
What do you mean?
Well, we have this new reality where spots cost money and can be locked down in advance. But how does a driver effectively manage a booking system while hauling freight down the highway? I mean, you can't exactly open a browser on your phone, enter your credit card, and cross-reference a map while merging into traffic at 65 miles an hour.
No, definitely not. Which is exactly why the 2026 landscape is defined by a massive technological integration.
So, apps and stuff.
Way more than just apps. Managing this paid inventory requires a level of sophistication far beyond a simple booking app. The major platforms are utilizing advanced sensor networks and artificial intelligence to monitor lot capacity.
Wait, really? AI for truck parking?
Oh, yeah. They use edge computing cameras mounted on light poles that analyze the physical geometry of vehicles to determine if a space is actually open or if a truck is just parked terribly over the lines.
Wow. So they have real-time telemetry on the ground.
Exactly. And the accuracy is hitting around 95%.
95%? That's incredible.
It is. And that telemetry feeds directly into the driver's in-cab routing software. So the navigation system isn't just giving directions anymore, it is predictive.
Oh, I see.
It can literally tell a driver, based on current turnover rates and your current speed, there is a 95% probability that a reserved spot will be available at a facility 42 miles ahead.
And it just handles it.
Yep. The system books the spot, processes the payment, and reroutes the truck seamlessly. It entirely removes the cognitive and psychological load of the hunt from the driver's shoulders.
So technology is essentially treating commercial parking exactly the way we treat booking a hotel room or an airline seat.
That's a perfect comparison.
It brings this highly predictive, high-tech precision to what has historically been a very gritty, low-tech part of the journey.
And that comparison to hotel booking is literal now, actually.
Really?
Yeah. The evolution of driver lodging goes beyond just paving more asphalt. Major corporate hotel chains have realized the massive revenue potential here and are partnering directly with freight platforms.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that coming.
We are seeing properties redesigning their lots to accommodate heavy combinations, offering fleet-discounted corporate rates, and integrating directly into the dispatch software.
So lodging has really evolved.
It really has. Lodging is no longer viewed as an optional convenience or a luxury for a driver who wants a change of pace. It has been integrated as a core variable in national logistics planning.
So let me make sure I've got this. When a load of electronics leaves a port in California heading for Chicago, the algorithms are booking the overnight hotel blocks or the private travel center spots at the exact same moment they're calculating the fuel stops and the delivery windows.
Correct. The entire route is a synchronized, closed-loop system now.
Okay, I was actually stuck on that $25 a night number earlier. Let's really bring this all home.
Okay, let's do it.
Because if you are listening to this right now, you might be thinking, well, this is a fascinating look into a specialized industry, but I'm an architect, or I'm a teacher, or I work in IT. Why does the predictive logistics of a truck stop matter to me?
Right. Why should the average person care?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it matters because this incredibly complex ecosystem of paid reservations, sensor networks, and lost hours costs an astronomical amount of money.
The macroeconomic impact is just staggering. When you aggregate the wasted fuel from idling, the supply chain delays, the missed docking appointments, and the outright loss of daily productivity, the truck parking shortage costs the broader economy over $100 billion annually.
$100 billion
Yeah.
annual.
Every single year.
That is an almost incomprehensible amount of friction to just accept as normal.
It is. And to make it more tangible, let's break it down to a micro level.
Yeah.
The data shows that these parking inefficiencies add approximately $247 in hidden costs to every single freight load moved in the country.
$247 per load.
Per load.
Multiply that by the millions of loads moving every week.
Okay.
I mean, the scale of the inflation here is just
Yeah.
massive. It is a localized inflation engine running silently in the background of the economy.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to follow where that 247 actually goes.
Right. Who pays for it?
The carrier doesn't just absorb it, they pass it to the freight broker. The broker passes it to the shipper passes it to the retailer.
The retailer passes it to us.
Exactly. The retailer bakes it directly into the consumer price index. That $247 penalty is fundamentally embedded in the price of the fresh produce you buy at the grocery store, the laptop you order online, and the lumber used to build your neighborhood.
So we are all paying for this.
You, as the end consumer, are silently subsidizing a national infrastructure failure every single time you swipe your credit card.
It is a hidden tax on modern life.
That's exactly what it is.
But I think stopping at the economics misses something critical here.
Yeah.
Beyond the $100 billion hit, there is a profound human element that we simply cannot ignore.
Very true.
Because behind the predictive algorithms and the freight data are real, hardworking individuals operating under extreme systemic stress.
Absolutely. The deterioration of the driver's quality of life is arguably the most critical vulnerability in the entire supply chain.
Right.
When a worker is structurally denied access to a safe place to sleep, when they can't reliably access basic hygiene facilities or healthy food options, the physical and mental degradation is rapid.
I can only imagine.
We are talking about chronic sleep deprivation, hypertension, and severe isolation.
It's a complete failure of the duty of care. I mean, we are asking these professionals to safely pilot heavy machinery that literally keeps our hospitals stocked and our grocery shelves full.
Yeah.
Yet we accept a system where finding a safe place to close their eyes is a daily high-stakes trauma. It is no wonder the industry suffers from notoriously high turnover rates.
Exactly.
Why would anyone stay in a profession where the infrastructure itself treats your basic survival as an afterthought?
Well, they don't stay. That's the reality. The parking crisis is cited as one of the primary drivers of the retention crisis in the industry. The human capital is burning out much faster than the physical capital is wearing down.
So we kicked off this deep dive by looking at a single truck idling on an exit ramp.
We did.
But what we have uncovered is that this isn't just about a driver needing a nap. Rest areas and truck stops are no longer just roadside bathrooms with a few vending machines.
Far from it.
They have evolved into highly complex, absolutely critical nodes in the global supply chain. They are the pressure valves of the economy. And fixing this bottleneck isn't something that can be patched over with a few minor zoning tweaks or a marginal tax increase.
No, it's going to take a lot more than that.
It is going to require massive, coordinated public-private partnerships, deep technological integration, and a fundamental societal shift in how we value and build infrastructure for the people doing the hardest jobs.
I couldn't agree more.
So what does this all mean?
I think the most compelling takeaway requires us to completely invert how we analyze logistics. We live in an era that is fanatically obsessed with supply chain speed.
Always faster.
Always. We expect our packages to arrive in 2 days, then 1 day, then we demand same-day delivery. We obsess over dashboard metrics, tracking items by the minute, constantly optimizing for how fast these trucks can move.
Right.
But perhaps the ultimate paradox of our modern, hyper-optimized logistics network is this. The true health, the true efficiency, and the actual speed of our fast-moving global economy depends entirely on what happens when those trucks are forced to stand completely still.